Welcome back to Black and Classic Podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Monet, where we talk all things politics and pop culture. Now, up first, we're going to get into our recap. Then we're going to take a look at what's going on in local news. It seems to be some fraud going on attached to a local woman in Ohio who's cutting into some body parts, but we'll get there. After that, we're going to dive deep into our headlines. We're going to discuss this government shutdown, what that means for you on your everyday life. And then we'll get into Trump and who he's going after and why, and much, much more. So get ready and let's talk about it.
That blackness, that black power, that black pushing them to identify with black culture. I think that's what you're asking. I have no.
Now, guys, last episode, right? I definitely came to you guys and I was looking to really just kind of have fun, not have such heavy topics. So I sat down and we discussed some pop culture. You guys had some good feedback, especially when it came to Brittany Renner. So there was a question post on a YouTube clip that I had posted, like a segment of what we were talking about. And someone commented and said, "Why do women still promote this prostitution lifestyle?" And I thought that was a great question because I don't think I discussed it too much in the clip or in that segment, but I believe that a lot of women are looking for the next like get rich quick scheme as well as looking for something to, give them some type of survival, you know what I mean? So I think that them doing this prostitution or this baby mama plan is really just survival in disguise. And when worst comes to worst, you gotta, use what you got to get what you want. So I definitely think that's what that is. I don't think it's more so promoting it as if it's glorification. I think it gets glorified once money comes in, but I don't think at the beginning it's glorified or when things are hard, like it was for Brittany Renner, that it's glorified. But I definitely believe um there's this promotion because it looks like it's glamorous and there's millions of dollars, and that's really not always the case. So I think it's more survival in disguise and people just using what they got to get what they want. And that's that on that. So now we're going to jump in into our local news. So, first up, this is happening in Connecticut. It says stolen benefits frustrate SNAP recipient in Jewett City. So, when I read this, right, you guys, I was like, okay, what is going on? Because this woman that this article was about, she was getting $700 a month in SNAP benefits, so like food stamps. And when she went to, go grocery shopping and make her purchase, cards not going through, cards decline, it's not working. So she's like, I know I have enough funds because she knows how much she gets every month. And when she looked at the account, there's only $298 in there. So, with that being said, she's like, okay, well, I haven't made any purchases. What's going on? Well, turns out it's a whole lot of frauding going on, a whole lot of thievery. Okay. The poor is now robbing the poor. Very, 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 very sad. Very, very, very sad. And I say that sarcastically, right? Because to me, I have preached this before. To me, I believe that there are a lot of people receiving food stamps and government assistance that don't need it. They are simply not cheating the system, right? Trying to beat the system. They know the loopholes, they know what they need to do in order to keep this government assistance, and they do that so they don't have to go out and work like the rest of Americans who are funding their life. You know what I mean? And so it's hard for me, right? It's a little bit of a conundrum. It's hard for me to, on the one hand, feel bad, but then also know that there are benefits going to people who don't need them. Now, does that mean you steal from people? No. But this is something that needs to be looked into. And not for nothing, guys, I will tell you, I foresee this being like like a Netflix or like a Hulu documentary once they figure it out, because as I read the article, the state of Connecticut Department of Social Services, they stated that from October 2024 to March 2025, $6 million, hmm, $6 million had been taken from these SNAP recipients. So I was like, okay, that's about a 6 month, maybe 5 month window. That's so on average, right? We're looking at $1 million a month, $1 million a month in the state of Connecticut alone. Somebody is frauding the system and running up big, big numbers. Then, as I'm reading this, I remembered I was watching, if I remember an edit, I'll drop the link below. I was watching a video of a podcast channel where they were explaining how a woman was on TikTok, y'all, on TikTok explaining to people how to do this right here, food stamp fraud. I am outdone. Okay. Like I said at the top in the recap, people are going to use what they got to get what they want. Okay. And someone has figured out how to commit this EBT fraud. I don't know if this has been around for years. I don't know. Okay. I'm not versed in the criminal world. I will not lie to you. I don't know. But at the tune of $6 million in 6 months, someone needs to figure this out. Now, Cash Patel is running around, firing people and being mad about pride flags at work desk. What he needs to do is send out some FBI people to figure out what's going on, because I guarantee you okay, this is not only happening in Connecticut. I'm pretty sure this is happening all over the United States of America, and someone is rolling up a big, big bag of money that they stole. And I feel offended because as a taxpayer, you stealing my money, mine. Sometimes with fraud, it's like they're defrauding banks or mortgage companies, student loans, you know what I'm saying? Have a ball. But this, they're already stealing from us, beating the system, cracking the code and figuring out how to stay on government assistance for generations. They've already cracked that code. I don't need y'all now stealing my hard-earned tax money. Come on, please give me a break. I just felt that was so unfair, and I need Cash Patel to look into that. Send out the FBI and get to the bottom of it. Because where is the money going? Who is getting this $6 million in 6 months? I tell you, they make you want to commit a crime sometimes. Like, really? Anyways, next up, this one is kind of funny. It's not so local news, but local enough. Listen, a Toledo, Ohio woman has been arrested. She had a smile, like just the perfect Colgate smile, okay, in her mugshot because she kicked the door down, went into someone's home, a man's home, and sliced and diced his precious jewels. I think that's the most politically correct way I can say that. Sliced and diced them, okay? To the point that when EMT arrived, they said for one of them, they could literally see the inside of it. You understand? She cut him down to the white meat. That's a Bernie Mac reference. She cut him down to the white meat. It was a black woman. She was smiling in her mugshot. I don't know too much else. Not a lot has been reported besides she kicked the door in and got to slicing and dicing. So I don't know. What I will say is I am going to be locked in on this story, because do you know how mad you have to be to not only one kick a door down? That already takes an incredible amount of strength, okay? Like you are raging, okay? She kicked the door down and then she got the slicing and dicing. I don't know, but to me, may- maybe she might have a reason. She might have a reason, okay? I don't see myself, I don't want to cause anyone any physical harm, I'll be honest with you. Um but hey, maybe something pushed her to it. So I just thought that was such a like, I don't want to say funny because someone was hurt, but interesting story. You don't see too many Lorena Bobbitt type things happening nowadays. So I'm definitely going to pay attention to that one because I want to know what brought her to that point. Like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? And you were like, you know what? I'm kicking a dough down. Yep, I feel you, sis. um, anyways, with that being said, we are now going to jump into our headlines. So, first up, we're going to talk about this government shutdown. Now, when it happened, something in my mind told me that this isn't like a rare occurrence. Like, I don't think it's every single time a president goes into term, it shuts down, but I just do remember it happening. So, I was a little like, nah, there's no need to cover it. But now it's been like going on and on and on. So I was like, okay, well, now we're at a point where let's see how this affects the average American, right? What is this doing to us, whether we know it or not? And let's just kind of attack it from that angle. So, first up, the whole situation, right, came about because politicians failed to agree on how to resolve a budget dispute. Now, if you remember in a previous episode, I spoke about how Connecticut was kind of wrestling with the same thing. The state government didn't shut down, but they were like going back and forth, trying to resolve the budget. So it's kind of like that situation, but more on a federal level. And now, if they come to an impasse, meaning both sides are like being stubborn and no one's looking to agree or make any headway, then they can shut down the government. However, what I did learn was that a stopgap bill designed to avoid the shutdown was passed in the House, but it did not clear the Senate. So this could have potentially not have happened had that stopgap bill been passed, but it hadn't been passed. So here we are, okay? Now, the US government services are temporarily suspended. So that's like 40% of federal workers, about 750,000, are on unpaid leave. That was a little interesting because I was like, well, geez, that's, you know what I mean? That's a lot of people out of work with no pay. But what I did learn, according to this BBC article, which was great, what I did learn is that they'll get back pay. So if it's out for if they're shut down for 2 months, all of these employees will receive back pay. And those employees include people like administrative staff, NASA staff, Department of Education, um, IRS staff, CDC, things like that, museums. I did see reported about 2 days ago, the African American Museum was also, closing its doors because obviously it can't, keep the doors open if staff is not being paid. So that are, kind of the federal workers that are being affected. And what I found to be interesting is, there are speculations and allegations that Trump wants, not wants, but is okay with, I'll phrase it that way, is okay with the government shutdown because this will be a way for him to identify non-essential workers because remember, when he came in the door, he was making cuts. This department got to go, this department got to go, these people nope, cut them, fire them, let them go. So now they're saying now that they're at this impasse, Trump is using this time to identify other areas and other federal workers that are non-essential. But I feel like that's just such a I mean, granted, there are a lot of like departments to me from what I've seen where it's just bureaucracy, right? It's not really something fundamental and like really necessary. So I totally understand him there, but we know, he gets hot in the pants and he just starts doing a lot. So a little hesitant on him feeling like he now can call who and who isn't an essential worker. That's like, whoa, pump your brakes, buddy, because he'll get in there and start going crazy. Now, it is reported from both sides that they can't agree in passing this funding bill. But I did want to mention what the numbers are because a lot of times we hear, well, the Republicans don't want to agree, and it's the Democrats that are holding it up. Let's just look at our numbers of who's really representing each party. So the House of Representatives, that's 219 Republicans with 3 delegates and 212 Democrats with 2 delegates. And then the Senate is 53 Republicans and 45 Democrats. And then there's 2 independents, but they caucus with the Democrats. That brings them to about 47 people. So they're kind of neck and neck. They're not like drastically far apart, because when you hear the rhetoric of, they're saying the left is, holding this process up, and then people are like, well, the Republicans run the House and the Republicans run the Senate. They're a little neck and neck. It's not like there's this large, you know, um difference in the numbers. There is still, you know, I don't wanna say even, but it's kinda equally yoked. You know what I mean? So right now, although they do have fairly similar numbers, of course, we know which one is higher. And what's interesting about that, although you have 219 and 53, and then you have 212 and 47, there are 60 votes that are needed in the Senate in order for this bill to pass. So the Democrats have that 60 and they're not relinquishing it. So that would speak to when you have the narrative of the right saying, well, the Democrats are holding this up. Well, yeah, if their 60 votes makes it yay or nay, then I guess they would be theoretically holding it up. However, remember, we got to pump our brakes. However, the Democrats aren't giving, right? They're not giving those 60 votes because they're looking for an extension on the tax credits that are expiring, which they claim will make health insurance cheaper for millions. Because remember, Trump came through and did all those cuts to Medicaid and to government healthcare programs. And so they're like, if you want us to agree to this, y'all need to reverse that and put these things back into place. The right is like, absolutely not. Not today, partner. We are not putting that back into place. And the left was like, well, I guess we'll sit here and wait it out. So that's kind of where that situation is as far as why it's at a standstill. It's at a standstill because the Democrats do hold the votes needed, but they want something for their votes, rightfully so. You know what I mean? So really, if you look at it, it would seem as though the right is holding it up because they're not making a concession to what the left is looking for. Now, do they have to? No, but both sides, again, like I said, it's an impasse where they're not willing to budge and to work any further. Now, and speaking of who is affected, right? We talked about the 40% of federal workers. I will say that does not include any border protection, that does not include law enforcement, FBI, things like that. They're still getting money in their pockets. You know who else? Now, when I read this, I was like, y'all have got to be kidding me. Do you know who else is getting paid? Members of Congress are still paid. So they're paid essentially to not work. Crazy, right? Like, to me, that is crazy. I feel like if this they pass this stopgap bill, and you don't want to, concede or negotiate or whatever, or come to some type of resolution, you should not be paid. That should be admin leave with no pay because you are not willing to do your job. I work in local government. There's a thing of bargaining in good faith where each party comes to the table to do it in good faith, right? That no one's going to be doing any like bad practices, anything like that. I feel like they should have that same approach to this for you to still be paid, but then not have to work. So now you get to go home, collect your paycheck, and not do anything because you guys want to be stubborn. That's absolutely crazy. Meanwhile, 40% of federal workers are out of a job. Well, unpaid leave. I'll say that. They have their job, but it's unpaid leave. No money's coming in. No coin. but you get to go back to your house wherever you live, right? And still be paid until I don't know when. We just have to wait and see. To me, that is absolutely unfair. Okay. We need to understand, I need to understand, I should say, why members of Congress still get paid. They can't sit down and come to a vote, halt their pay. I bet you halt that pay, some people start making some decisions and some concessions and they start figuring out what they need to do in order to get a bill passed. Cuz there's no pressure if you're not asked to or if there's no threat, I should say. If there's no threat of not being paid, then what you worried about? Either way it go, you're going to get paid. This is almost like a vacation. Americans, federal workers, no money. Members of Congress still get paid and they can't make a decision. Absolutely crazy. Now, yeah, sure, they'll get back pay, but what's back pay when you're going weeks without money? Bills do not stop coming in. You can't call up your, cell phone company, or you can't call up your your electrical company and say, "Hey, the government shut down, so I won't be able to pay you for the foreseeable future." Thanks. Bills still have to be paid. Meanwhile, Congress still gets paid. They're fine. It's just, I'm telling you, it's so messed up. I swear it is. And so there's like, this thing with Trump where he's just not looking to back down. Democrats are looking to have cheaper healthcare, which fair, you know what I mean? In this article by BBC, it does say that analysts estimate it could shave roughly zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2 percentage points off economic growth, which means the economy already is bad. And now this means it's going to get worse. Zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2 doesn't seem like a lot until you start seeing it. And then it's like, oof, So there's that. And then I did mention that I thought this had happened before. So I did just make note of this, that there had been 3 shutdowns during Trump's first presidential term. And then the second longest one was under former President Bill Clinton. And then there was one under former President Obama that was 16 days. So it's not totally unprecedented. I know they tried to make it seem as if it was just this super random thing, but not really. I'm just gonna take a look at my notes. Just make sure I hit all the points because it's very interesting. I think the only part that was, yeah, I'm all good. The only part that was super interesting really was, and I will not lie, it was just simply that Congress still gets paid. I'm like, they get paid. Like, could you imagine being told, um, perfect example. My first year of college, the teachers all at the college went on strike. So I think classes had started, and by the next week they went on strike. Like, they came in, they met the students. Some teachers explained what was going to happen, some didn't. So like, word quickly got around, and then after that they were on strike. They were on strike the entire semester, and I ended up, like, maybe 2 to 3 weeks before the semester ended, I ended up transferring out because there was no end date. It was just like they were striking and that was that, you know? But imagine just kind of like this situation, you're paying tuition and you're not getting the benefit of it. It's crazy. Like, you get to get paid and I go without pay, but it's literally your job to like figure this out, you know? So whatever. I just found that to be incredibly shocking. If anybody should not be paid, it should be the people who can't come to a decision, to be honest. Now, topic number 2. This one this one gave me a little bit of rage. I'm going to get into it, but it did give me just a little bit of rage. So I found this on Fox News, and Rutgers professor signs petition to disband Turning Point USA from campus. Now, that's the gist of the whole story, right? That's the gist of the entire story. What I found interesting is that this petition was on change.org, and change.org does not like publicize who signs a petition. So you can't go to this petition to disband Turning Point USA at Rutgers, click on, who signed it and then just see a list of who signed it. You can't do that. It keeps it anonymous to a degree. However, on change.org, there's a recent signers carousel. So that just basically means, when you go to sign the petition, names will just randomly pop up. Now, a lot of times for the average person, you might see a name, think nothing of it. You're just there to sign the petition and keep it moving with your day. What's interesting, and see, so many thoughts, y'all, so many thoughts. What's interesting is Fox News Digital was monitoring the carousel. So they saw this petition go up and they said, well, let's monitor who's signing it. Already, we're looking to be the victim. You monitoring who's signing to disband something, you're looking to be a victim. But okay, I digress. Let's move on. So they're looking to see who signs. And in my head, what I imagine is that as it's, bringing up names, someone's jotting the name down, or someone sees it here and then they're at their computer Googling the name and they're like, okay, that's a nobody. Okay, that's a nobody. Okay, that's nobody. Bingo, we got somebody. And who they got, it was Tia Kolbaba. Tia Kolbaba is the professor at Rutgers. And so what they then did was reach out to Rutgers and say, hey, your professor signed this petition to disband TPUSA at Rutgers. Do you have a comment? And what I loved is that the university, in their statement back, obviously to Fox, said the university does not comment on specific personnel or student conduct matters. I mean, they said a little bit more, but I felt that sentence was the strongest because we are at a time where, to me, this is doxing. For Fox News to put out this article with her face on it saying that she signed a petition, this is doxing. And not for nothing, they just were making complaints saying that the left does all these things that's considered violent, and doxing is so violent. This is doxing. This lady signed this petition thinking it was anonymous. You monitored it and pretty sure you Googled every single person until you found someone that you could then rat out. You know what I mean? Or cancel or get that person fired or create a news article. This lady was minding her business. Minding her business. You have no reason to know why she signed. Maybe she didn't want to sign because she felt like, I really love Charlie Kirk, but I don't want our campus to become this politically charged, environment. I just don't think it's safe. Look what happened in Utah. This might not be safe. Let's just disband this. What you don't know what her reason is, but you got ready to go and go to her employer, post these articles with her face. It's absolutely disgusting. Let's be honest. Especially if you're monitoring it just to find somebody. Crazy. So they reached out to the professor. She also did not return, a comment or a statement about this. And I felt like she shouldn't. Like, she should not have to come out and make a statement because you guys sat up there, Fox News Digital sat there and monitored whose name came up. That is bizarre. Like, let's be for real. Okay? That's weird. This lady was minding her business, something you should have been doing as well. So, with that being said, the article goes on more to talk about other people who are, well, okay, so let me just say they reached out to Rutgers. They got a comment basically being like, we have no comment. They reached out to the professor, didn't hear back. So then they reached out to Ava Kwan, who is the outreach coordinator for Rutgers TPUSA. And she basically was like, this is just a disgrace. The same people that, want freedom of speech also want to cancel freedom of speech. Each side has the same argument. So that was Ava's argument about the freedom of speech situation. Then she brought up a professor by the name of Mark Bray, who they call the students on campus, particularly the ones who don't agree with him, call him Dr. Antifa because he is also the author of a book and it's called Antifa, the Anti-Fascist Handbook. So they're like, well, if you guys are okay with her, then you also have this guy. So they're like, get rid of both of them, like this lady doesn't want TPUSA. This one is Dr. Antifa. Both of them should go because they only want free speech if it's their speech, the same old rhetoric. But I bring that up to say specifically, right? They wrote in this Fox News, or the author of this, who is Peter the Abarsco, something like that. Peter wrote, amid the Trump administration's crackdown on Antifa, Bray announced this week that he and his wife are fleeing to Spain. Bray said his address was doxxed and his life was threatened, prompting the move. Only thing I didn't like about that was fleeing. Why is he fleeing? You say fleeing as if he's a criminal. That's what that applies. Fleeing means escape, right? That's what that applies. You could have just said Bray announced this week that he and his wife are moving to Spain, because then you ended and said prompted the move. Fleeing, very, very, very loaded word, because it sounds like he's a criminal and he's fleeing. He's running away from something. The man isn't a criminal. Just because someone doesn't agree with your beliefs or what you think does not make them a criminal. Does not mean that you dox them and you get articles and you put their face out everywhere and you just make it hard for them. That's not necessary. It's absolutely not necessary. Okay. I don't think that if Rutgers had got whatever, like let's say it's 20,000 signatures, if Rutgers had got the 20,000 signatures, that they would have disbanded TPUSA. I don't see that happening. It seems like they try to stay pretty neutral, especially by the statement, but come on. We have got to stop chasing down stories to make people be bad people. They just don't agree with you. That doesn't make them a bad person. They just don't agree with you. And as adults, we should know it's okay to have differing opinions. Now, with that being said, we're going to jump into our next and last topic. Well, next to last topic, I should say. Listen, I had been seeing this story circulate and I had no idea what it was about. And so I saw more headlines while I'm doing the research for the episode. And I said, you know what? I just need to go ahead and do a deep dive into this. So we're going to talk about Letitia James versus Donald Trump, because that's really what it is at the end of the day. So, from what I gather, it's President Trump being President Trump. The man is petty, okay? He's a petty, petty man. And so Letitia James, she's Attorney General for New York. She went after Trump, right? She went after Trump. She won her case. She claimed that he committed fraud and all of these things. She won it. He had to pay 500 million. In August, that actually got thrown out. The penalty of the money, the financial part got thrown out, but the charges still stuck as far as the fraud and everything like that there. Cool. So now Trump is in office. And what does he do? He goes after Letitia. He goes after Letitia for the same things that she went after him for. She bought her home, and I want to say, yep, she purchased a home in Virginia. And she had claimed that it was going to be her second residence because obviously her primary residence is in New York because she's the New York Attorney General. So she said this was going to be her second residence. However, it had come to find out that it was going to be a rental property, but she said it was her second residence to get like I don't want to say a tax break, but to get a loan, to acquire a loan for the home. And that loan was basically, she saved around $18,933. Okay, that's the exact amount. So I say about 20,000. Okay, we'll round that up real quick. So they saying she misrepresented on her paperwork, get the words out, and she did that to save this money. Now, when they look into it, she had already kind of cleared that up, right? It was like, okay, some of the paperwork got filled out incorrectly. I filled it out correctly. We resolved it. Case closed. And Trump's like, no, 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 no. Case is not closed. We're digging into this because you misrepresented and you allegedly got this $20,000 so you can get a lower rate, yada, yada, yada. Trump, please, please, okay? He goes after people he doesn't like, he weaponizes everything around him in order to bring them down. You got mad because she went after you and had a case, clearly, because she won her case. And now you're trying to do the same thing to her, but you have no basis to stand on. And what's even crazier is, let me dig a little deeper. There was, yep. So the lawyer that was overseeing the case at the beginning, Eric Seibert, he resigned in September. Just this past September, he resigned. Trump claims he was fired, but I'll just say he resigned. And he resigned because, and Trump says fired because he said there was no case. I can imagine this gentleman is getting all this pressure from Trump to bring this case, to close this case, to win this case. And he's like, there is no case. There is absolutely no case. So he resigns or got fired. Who knows? He says, she say. But if the lawyer that was on it, if the prosecution that was on it is saying there's no case, there is probably no case. Like, that's just a black bottom line. And it's kind of crazy that, I spoke about this before of how much Trump weaponizes, the legal system and the lawyers and the courts and, the FBI and all these things because he has grudges against people. He's holding grudges. That's very, very strange to me. And I don't love that he does that. Because I feel like, they say women, if they were empowered, they would be emotional. This is an emotional move, if you ask me. This is an emotional move to go after this woman and already be told there is no case, already know that a lot of it got cleared up. Why are you still trying to prosecute? Why? Because over 2 years ago, she won a case against you in New York. So now you're going to try to prosecute her? It's just it's just very, very strange. And so once that gentleman stepped down, Trump, of course, brings in someone that he knows personally, and he brought in his former personal lawyer, Lindsay Halligan, and now she's the one who's going to now be prosecuting the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James. And Letitia is like, look, these people they're not loyal to the law. They're not, trying to get justice. They're just doing whatever Trump says. And it's unfortunate because he is using his level of power to bring down his enemies. Remember, there was that clip I told you before where he basically said, like, if I don't like you, I consider it hate speech and will go after you. That's a scary thought to say, I have a personal feeling about you, and given my power, I'm going to go after you. That's quite literally what he is doing. So, I don't know. We'll see where it ends. I feel as though a lot of this is going to be theatrics, it's going to be something that I hope just gets resolved. I hope that, Letitia, stays prayed up and she is protecting herself because I did see that there was a judge whose home was blown up with her and her kids inside of it. And, granted, I'm sure it's still under investigation, but they were saying she was a judge that ruled against Trump. So it's just really strange out there. And I just feel like you can't go after people because you don't like them or you want to hold a grudge. That's very, very petty. And to be, as they say, the leader of the free world, that's not how you should move. But that's neither here nor there. You guys drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Also, like this video. Make sure y'all are liking videos. Show support, okay? Support your girl. I come here for y'all to talk to y'all. Support your girl. You know what I'm saying? And wait, hold on. Before I go, I did want to say this. I have been following the Little Dirk case. Next week, I think I'll divulge a little bit more and really dig into that. But it is unfortunate where he is right now. It is unfortunate. But yes, next week we are going to divulge in to what's going on in his case and the things that have come out. I got to get my printings, y'all. I got to get my printings, got to get see what's redacted, what's not, read, highlight. I got to do all the things, but we will discuss that next week. So, with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Black and Classic Podcast, where you guys know we talk all things politics and pop culture. Please drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you're feeling, what you're not feeling. But always remember, I am not going to debate you, okay? Keep it cute. I'm not going to debate you. You could debate who? Yo, granny. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye. Thanks for watching. Come back next week for all things politics and pop culture. And before you click off, remember, like, comment, and subscribe to Black and Classic Podcast.